Good afternoon. Kyle Beisner here with assignment number 2, our last assignment for AEP 855 in the summer 2013, which is quickly coming to an end. We were asked to look at race, class, access, gender, and equity issues facing education. For my particular assignment, I chose to look at the socioeconomic disadvantages in education and how those can affect classrooms and students. The choice of topic really kind of came related to an assignment from AEP 858, data analysis. My school is labeled as a very low socioeconomic school with over 65% of our students qualifying for free and reduced lunches. But we have been very successful over the last 5 to 8 years, I guess, receiving governor awards for our performance on assessment tests, and even going so far as to receive a Blue Ribbon Award. We had some teachers fly out to Washington, D.C. to receive that for our middle school a couple years ago. So I kind of was thinking, looking for articles maybe that would help with what's attributed to that success, and maybe what has changed the last couple years. Our assessment scores, I guess, have been lower. They've still been good, but have definitely been lower. The first article I found was Equality of Educational Opportunity, Myth or Reality in U.S. Schooling. Some overview of the article. They spoke about how for over 100 years children have had an equal opportunity to learn the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Regardless of origin or socioeconomic status, a student who works hard can achieve anything. It is part of kind of the American dream that one can work itself out of poverty. But American schools are far from the equalizer we believe or want them to be nowadays. Rather than having one system, the article looked at the U.S. system as something that's divided into some 15,000 roughly school districts. We talk a lot about federal control, state control, and local control. And the federal government passes mandates such as No Child Left Behind and the current change in education, our Common Core standards, and then our state legislature and state board of education pass down mandates to the local districts and local boards that we follow. But at the same time, our local boards really control the curriculum and what we deliver to our students. And in that case right there, the article spoke to radically different opportunities being provided by the different schools, districts, and states. The article spoke to many factors being beyond the student's control, and how that is something that is unfortunate and disappointing for the student. Things that they are unable to control, such as their parents' socioeconomic status and the school where they attend, the opportunities that school might afford them. And so, unfortunately, students have no control over that. The concept in the article that they chose to explore was OTL, or opportunity to learn. The research was based on mathematics here, and the opportunity students had to learn different topics in different states and districts. They surveyed what students were being taught while in the 8th grade, and what they found, unfortunately, was not surprising but nonetheless disturbing. Socioeconomic status not only is related to achievement but overall opportunity to learn. They saw one glaring opportunity was students at a school with 60% of their parents holding a college degree received math at nearly a grade level ahead of students at a school with 30% of the parents holding a college degree. So to their point, they're seeing there that the opportunity to learn is not the same at 2 different schools. The idea is that public education is available to all, and the content coverage should be essentially the same. And their research obviously showed that to be otherwise, that there is a vast difference in what students have an opportunity to learn depending on the school you attend. They then researched high school math in Ohio and Michigan. They studied districts that housed even more than one high school and found that some schools in the same districts did not offer the same courses, thus altering the opportunity to learn for students in the same district. Article number 2, for the public good, Urban Youth Advocacy and the Fight for Public Education, was really a good read. The article kind of revolved around the fact that public education is a public good, and how this is kind of a rallying cry for a movement today across the country fighting for equality and good schools for all students. It'll talk later in here about how education maybe seems to be becoming privatized, and kind of obviously the wealthier you are, you can afford to attend a charter school or a private school, and therefore have a different opportunity than students attending a public school. The particular article focused on Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but kind of tied itself back to problems our nation is facing. Public education is a public good. The article looked at it in three ways. Public education educates the vast majority of our nation's youth. Some 90% of students still receive their education from public schooling. The second way is that schools, public education and public schools are paid for by the public and used by the public. Therefore, they are a benefit to the general public. Both 1 and 2 kind of speak to the fact that we're educating tomorrow's doctors and lawyers and even tradesmen as well, the things that'll make our country go in years down the line. The third is the pathway to opportunity and success for all people, and both articles kind of speak to the fact that education has always been a way where if you wanted to better yourself or better your path, if you put in the work and the effort, education was a way to do that. And that just doesn't seem to be the case in these days. Both articles point to because of the disadvantages that lower socioeconomic schools and students have. Poor school districts struggle with vastly unequal resources compared to schools in wealthier socioeconomic developments that might have different opportunities. There's been increased pressure, obviously, to perform on assessment tests, and this has put lower socioeconomic school districts in an even a bigger hole, not having the same resources. Education, again, has always been seen as a way out of poverty, and the difference in schools do not make for a level launching pad. Pundits will say poverty is no excuse for low student achievement and quickly point to teachers to explain low scores when it's hard to help them or have them understand that students coming from a lower socioeconomic background, when they leave the school, obviously when they're completing homework and outside of the school, have a much lower chance of having an opportunity to learn, kind of based on their surroundings. However, or again, speaking of the fact, out of all the out-of-school factors, the link between poverty and learning is perhaps the most critical, and that's what this article asserted and spoke to. A response, like I spoke earlier in the article, has been across the nation. We see charter schools and cyber charter schools, as well as vouchers and tax credit programs. And so the privatization of education seems to only benefit the few at the detriment of many. Again, leaving public schools to kind of fend for themselves. And we hear about cuts, and every year, we kind of fear what, as our district talks it, doing more with less, which has been the case over the last 5 to 7 years. My first year, last year as an educational administrator, you really get to see that firsthand when, as the year winds down, you're really counting every penny and trying to get through the end of the year, while at the same time providing everything you can, to provide your students with an appropriate education as much as you possibly can. And a lot of it now comes from, looking to your community to do as much as they can for you, and really building relationships there. The article again argues, as I would believe we all would, for equality in education for all, regardless of socioeconomic status, and really any other factor that should not have an effect on the ability a child has to receive an education. And again, we just speak to the fact that you can see it in Kansas, and I'm sure you can see it in some of the states you guys as distance learners work in, that I can look at my school district and I can look 60 to 100 miles in any direction and see school districts that have different opportunities than we have for our students. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, unfortunately, that's the way it is right now, and we have to find a way to make that work best for our students, I guess. I think sometimes we get caught up worrying about what could be rather than what is. We look at the leadership role as it relates to lower socioeconomic students and schools, and how, as a leader, it's our responsibility to plow ahead, so to speak. Nordhaus, the one thing I caught out of chapter 14 was talking about ethnocentrism and prejudice. and how as a leader this can be a really big obstacle to effective leadership because it prevents people from fully understanding or respecting the viewpoints of others. And I think you hear a lot of people talk about educational administration and leadership as being kind of the higher end paid of education, the elite of education, and how they have a hard time relating to what some students face at home and why some students struggle more than others. And that's something I really, last year, tried to really get to know each student, encourage each student that education and the opportunity they have post-secondary education can be a way to hopefully improve, their lifestyle, and a lot of students respond to that. Excuse me. Looking at putting into practice leadership characteristics and ideas from our other text, obviously the leadership challenge. The chapters, I guess, that stuck out to me were searching for opportunities, experimenting and taking risks, fostering collaboration, and strengthening others. And I think especially the last two, I guess, are the big ones I lean on. Collaborating with not only faculty and staff, but community members, students, and making sure, that we do understand what some students face outside of the school and how we can make them successful regardless of that. And then again, strengthening others, and that's something, again, my first year that I really tried hard to do, I guess, with our students, was to offer them an opportunity to help them look at what possibilities are out there if they choose to really put the time and effort into their education, and hopefully strengthen them as they move on past secondary school, obviously. Finish up with references, the two articles that I used, another article that I didn't reference but just again spoke to post-secondary education for low-income students in America, which was a very interesting read, and then of course our two texts. So again, really interesting looking at socioeconomic disadvantages in education and how as a leader we're tasked with facing those.